Have you ever thought that the people we love the most might be hiding secrets that could change our lives forever? Sometimes, the truth only reveals itself when it's too late to ask questions. This is exactly what happened to Marcus Wellington on the day he said goodbye to the man who raised him. The rain fell relentlessly over Riverside Cemetery that grey October morning. Marcus Wellington stood under a black umbrella, his Italian suit soaked at the shoulders, watching his grandfather's mahogany casket being lowered into the earth. At 32 years old, Marcus had built a technology empire worth over $200 million, but none of his success could fill the void opening in his chest at that moment. Theodore Wellington had been more than a grandfather. After Marcus's parents died in a car accident when he was only 7, the old man had become his father, mother, and best friend all at once. Theodore had taught him everything: how to ride a bike, how to close a business deal, how to be a man of integrity in a world that often rewarded dishonesty. Around the grave, about 50 people shared Marcus's grief. Business partners, old friends, members of the country club Theodore had frequented for decades. Everyone who should be there was present. But as the priest recited the final prayers, Marcus noticed something unusual. On the other side of the grave, partially hidden behind an ancient oak tree, stood a woman he had never seen before. She appeared to be in her early 40s, with dark hair pulled into a simple bun. She wore a modest black dress, nothing like the designer outfits the other women present wore. But what really caught Marcus's attention was the little girl beside her. The child couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She had curly brown hair and clutched a worn teddy bear against her chest. But what struck Marcus most deeply were her eyes, an intense green, exactly like his grandfather's, exactly like his own. The little girl was crying silently, tears streaming down her round cheeks as the woman held her hand firmly. There was something in the way the child looked at the casket, a genuine pain that seemed too profound for someone so young attending the funeral of a stranger. Marcus frowned. Who were they? Why hadn't he ever seen them before? And why did that little girl seem so devastated by the death of a man she supposedly didn't know? When the ceremony ended, and people began approaching to offer condolences, Marcus tried to make his way toward the oak tree. But the crowd of mourners surrounded him, each wanting to share a memory of Theodore, express their sympathies, or discuss business matters that now seemed trivial to Marcus. By the time he managed to break free, the woman and child had disappeared. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in bed, those green eyes haunting his mind. At 3 in the morning, he gave up trying to rest and went to his home office. His grandfather's lawyer had delivered a box of personal documents the day before, papers that needed to be organized, accounts to be closed, a whole life reduced to folders and receipts. Marcus had been avoiding opening that box, but now it seemed like the only thing that might provide answers. He worked methodically, sorting through decades of bank statements, property deeds, and business contracts. Theodore had been meticulous with his records, everything perfectly organized and labeled. But as dawn began to break, Marcus found something unusual. It was a separate bank account he had never heard of. Unlike Theodore's other accounts, business investments, retirement funds, the trust set up for Marcus, this one had a simple, almost hidden name: Special Care Account. For the past 6 years, his grandfather had been making monthly withdrawals of $5,000 from this account, always on the first of the month, always the same amount. The withdrawals had only stopped 3 weeks ago, when Theodore had his fatal heart attack. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. $30,000 a year, over $180,000 in total. Where had that money gone? He grabbed his phone and called David Chen, his head of security and private investigator. If anyone could find answers, it was David. "I need you to investigate something," Marcus said without preamble when David answered, "and I need complete discretion." 3 days later, David walked into Marcus's office with a manila folder and an expression that Marcus had learned to recognize over the years, the look of someone about to deliver news that would change everything. "You're going to want to sit down for this," David said quietly. Marcus was already seated, but he gripped the armrests of his chair. "Just tell me." David opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. It was the woman from the funeral, captured in profile as she entered a modest apartment building in a working-class neighborhood across town. Her name is Sarah Matthews. She's 43, works as a nurse at Community General Hospital, single mother, and the little girl, David paused, placing another photo on the desk. Her name is Emma, Emma Wellington Matthews. Marcus's heart stopped. Wellington. Your grandfather's name is on the birth certificate. David continued, his voice gentle but professional. He's listed as the father. Marcus. Emma is your aunt, your grandfather's daughter. The office seemed to tilt. Marcus gripped the desk to steady himself. That's impossible. My grandfather was married to my grandmother for 50 years. He would never. It happened 7 years ago. David interrupted. Your grandmother had already passed away by then. Sarah was his nurse during a health scare, some heart trouble. They became close. When Sarah discovered she was pregnant, she told your grandfather. According to what I could gather, Theodore wanted to be part of Emma's life, but Sarah insisted on keeping it quiet. She didn't want money or recognition. She just wanted her daughter to know her father. Marcus stared at the photo of Emma. Those green eyes looked back at him from the paper. So innocent, so familiar. The monthly withdrawals, he murmured. He was supporting them. He was supporting them.
Not exactly.
David corrected. According to bank records, Theodore set up a trust fund for Emma's future, education, medical expenses. The monthly amount wasn't for Sarah's living expenses. When I dug deeper, I found that most of that money was being donated to various children's charities in Emma's name. Theodore was teaching her about giving back, even at such a young age. Marcus felt his throat tighten.
That was exactly something his grandfather would do.
Theodore had always believed that wealth came with responsibility. Sarah never asked for anything beyond Theodore's time with Emma, David added. She's proud, independent. But now, he hesitated.
Marcus, there's something else you need to know.
Sarah has been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. The prognosis isn't good. She's been undergoing treatment, but it's aggressive, and her insurance doesn't cover all of it. And Emma is about to lose the only parent she has. Marcus finished, his voice hollow. Marcus sat in his car outside the apartment building for 20 minutes before gathering the courage to go inside. What was he supposed to say? Hello, I'm your nephew, even though I'm 26 years older than you. Sorry your father, my grandfather died, and now your mother is dying too. Everything sounded wrong in his head. Finally he forced himself out of the car and climbed the 3 flights of stairs to apartment 3B. His hand trembled slightly as he knocked. Sarah opened the door, and Marcus saw recognition flash in her tired eyes. Even pale and thin from treatment, there was a quiet dignity about her. Marcus Wellington, she said softly. It wasn't a question, Mrs. Matthews. I hoped we could talk. Sarah studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. Please, come in. The apartment was small but immaculately clean. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. A shelf displayed photos of Emma at various ages, always with Theodore somewhere in the frame. At the park, at the zoo, reading together on a couch. Marcus didn't recognize. His grandfather had lived an entire secret life here, full of love and laughter. Emma is at school, Sarah said, gesturing for Marcus to sit on the modest couch. I thought it would be better if we spoke first. Why didn't you come to the house after the funeral? Marcus asked. Why did you leave? Sarah smiled sadly. Because that wasn't my place. Theodore's life with you was separate from his life with us, and he wanted it that way. Not because he was ashamed, she added quickly, seeing Marcus's expression, but because he was trying to protect everyone. He knew how complicated this would be. He should have told me, Marcus said, surprised by the anger in his voice. I would have understood, would you? Sarah asked gently. Theodore watched you build your empire, saw how hard you worked to honor the Wellington name. He didn't want you to think less of him, and he was afraid that revealing Emma might create complications, legal battles over inheritance, family drama, media attention that would hurt a little girl who just wanted to know her father. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. David told me about your diagnosis. Sarah's composure cracked slightly. Theodore promised me he would always take care of Emma. We had plans. He was going to formally acknowledge her after her 10th birthday, when she was old enough to understand the situation better. But then, her voice broke. And now, I'm sick, and Emma is going to lose both of us, and I don't know what to do. You don't have to do anything, Marcus said firmly. Emma is family. She's my grandfather's daughter, which makes her my responsibility now. I don't want charity, Sarah said, pride flashing in her eyes. It's not charity, It's family taking care of family, exactly the way my grandfather taught me. Marcus pulled out a business card and wrote on the back, "This is my personal attorney's number. Call him tomorrow. We're going to get you into the best cancer treatment center in the country, with the best doctors. And Emma," he paused, emotion tightening his throat, "Emma will never be alone. I promise you that." Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us." Marcus looked at the photos on the shelf, at his grandfather's smile in each one, the same warm smile he'd known his whole life. "Because knowing you would have made my grandfather happy," he said simply. "And because Emma deserves to have family who loves her. I may not have known about her until a few days ago, but that doesn't make her any less my family." Over the next 3 months, Marcus's life transformed in ways he never anticipated. He arranged for Sarah to receive treatment at the renowned Sterling Cancer Center, where the doctors were cautiously optimistic. The tumor was shrinking, and while the battle was far from over, Sarah had hope again. But more importantly, Marcus got to know Emma. Their first meeting had been awkward. Emma had hidden behind her mother, clutching that worn teddy bear, those green eyes watching him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Marcus had knelt down to her level, and said the only thing that felt right. "Your daddy was my grandfather, and he was the best man I ever knew. I think he would want us to be friends." Emma had considered this carefully, then asked, "Do you like chocolate chip cookies?" "Daddy always brought me chocolate chip cookies." Marcus had smiled. "I love chocolate chip cookies. Maybe we could get some together sometime." That had been the beginning. Now every Saturday, Marcus picked Emma up for what they called their adventure days. They went to museums, parks, the aquarium. Marcus taught her about the stars, the same way Theodore had taught him. He set up a trust fund that would ensure Emma's future was secure, no matter what happened. He enrolled her in the best school in the city, where she quickly made friends and thrived. But more than the material things, Marcus gave Emma something priceless. He shared stories about Theodore. He showed her photos of the grandfather she'd known as Daddy, telling her about the business empire he'd built, the lives he'd touched, the legacy of integrity he'd left behind. "You know what he told me once," Marcus said one Saturday, as they sat in his grandfather's study, which Marcus had kept exactly as Theodore had left it. He said that the true measure of a man isn't how much money he makes, or how many people know his name. It's whether he made the people he loved feel cherished. Emma, now confident enough to sit beside Marcus rather than across from him, looked up with those piercing green eyes. "Daddy made me feel cherished every single day." "He made me feel that way too," Marcus admitted, "and I think that's the greatest gift he gave us both." A year after Theodore's funeral, Marcus stood in the same cemetery, but this time the sun was shining. Spring flowers bloomed around the Wellington family plot, where a new headstone had been added. It bore a simple inscription: "Theodore James Wellington, beloved father, grandfather, and friend. He taught us that family is not just blood, but love." Beside Marcus stood Emma, now 7 years old, her hand tucked confidently in his. On his other side was Sarah, her hair growing back in soft curls after the chemotherapy, her latest scans showing no signs of cancer. The doctors were calling it a miracle, but Marcus knew his grandfather had something to do with it. Theodore had always had a way of making impossible things happen. "Do you think Daddy can see us?" Emma asked, placing a bouquet of wildflowers on the grave. "I think he can," Marcus said, "and I think he's very proud of you." Emma smiled, then turned to Marcus with a serious expression. "Uncle Marcus, when I grow up, I want to help sick people like Mommy was sick. I want to make them feel better." Marcus felt his heart swell. "That's a wonderful dream, Emma, and I'll help you achieve it, just like Grandpa Theodore helped me achieve mine. Promise?" Emma held out her pinky finger. Marcus linked his pinky with hers, the gesture both childish and profound. "Promise, that's what family does. We help each other's dreams come true." As they walked back to the car, Emma chattering about the science project she was working on at school, Marcus reflected on how drastically his life had changed. A year ago, he'd thought he'd lost the last member of his family. Instead, he'd discovered that family could grow in the most unexpected ways. The technology empire still existed. The board meetings and business deals continued, But now Marcus had something more valuable than any amount of money. He had purpose beyond profit. He'd established the Theodore Wellington Foundation, funding cancer research and children's education programs. He'd learned that being there for a 7-year-old school play was more important than closing a multi-million-dollar deal. He'd discovered that love didn't divide when you shared it, it multiplied. And sometimes, late at night, Marcus could have sworn he heard his grandfather's voice in the quiet of his study. "You understand now, don't you, boy? The secret to a wealthy life has nothing to do with your bank account. It's about the richness of your relationships, the depth of your love, the legacy of kindness you leave behind." Marcus understood. Finally, he truly understood. We often think that loss is the end of something, but sometimes it's actually the beginning. Marcus lost his grandfather, but gained a family he never knew he needed. Life has a strange way of balancing our grief with unexpected gifts, if only we're brave enough to accept them. So ask yourself, are you ready to embrace the surprises life has waiting for you? Are you willing to discover that family isn't just about who you've always known, but about who you're meant to find? Because sometimes, the most beautiful chapters of our lives are written in the margins we never thought to read. Sometimes, the greatest treasure isn't what we inherit, it's who we choose to love.